I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Curtis?
Here.
Ms. George? Here. Ms. Ferguson? Here. Mr. Hagan?
Here.
Mr. Kennedy?
Here.
Ms. Nance? Here. Mr. Morberger? Ms. Valento?
Here.
Ms. Wick?
Here.
That's 8 present and 1 absent.
Thank you. We started getting a little late. We had a closed session for personnel before, and we were going to have another closed session after this meeting under personnel.
John Thompson last night.
Oh, yeah, we did have Tom Templeton. What's last
Personnel.
night's date? Yeah, personnel.
Last night.
Last night's date was 12.
Virtual.
Yeah, it was virtual. Sorry. That's why I forgot about it. Student council. Is student council available this evening? Is anyone from student council available? All right, I see a student council. Is he on?
Patricio.
Cheryl, you want to go ahead and go?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
you can.
Hello, everybody. My name is Patricio Beltran, and I'm a member of the high school student council. The Walk Around Mars fundraiser is being held virtually and is currently going as we have raised $35,000 so far. And I'm also happy to share that members of the student council are volunteering to clean up trash along the corridor of the Adams Township Park. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good to hear from student council. We had no board reports, correct? So we'll move on to public comment at this point for agenda items only. Does anyone wish to have public comment on agenda items? Public comment at this point. Does anyone have something for agenda items? Seeing no one raising their hand, we'll move on to the main agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any board discussion? So for board minutes from March 2nd, March 9th, March 16th. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
So that passes. Move to personnel. Under personnel on addendum number 1, we have a resignation of Mrs. Hall's house. Assistant coach was brought to us March 8th, was her resignation date. We had a head coach for track number 2 and number 3 is presented. Can I have a first and a second?
Kevin, so moved.
Dale second.
So I have a first and a second. Any board comment or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? So personnel on the addendum carries. So moving on to the main agenda under finance. Numbers 1 through 13 on the main agenda under finance. Can I have a first and a second, please?
Megan, so moved.
Anthony, second.
I have a first and a second. Any board discussion or comments? So under finance is number 1 through 13 on the main agenda. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? So that carries. Under programs on the main agenda, number 1, and under programs on the addendum, number 1. Can I have a first and a second?
Kevin, so moved.
Sally second.
I have a first and a second. Any board comments or questions?
No, would someone from administration please mention the change in the calendar? I think it's inconsequential to students, but I maybe didn't clarify.
Yes, we, thank you for asking that. We originally had the induction scheduled. I'm trying to find the calendar here. We originally had the teacher induction scheduled later in the week in August of that first week back, which would have been the 19th. And Dr. McMahon and I spoke and felt that if we're having new teachers coming in for induction, wouldn't it be better to have that on Monday? So that when they're with us the rest of the week, they're a little more comfortable. So the only change was moving the new teacher induction from the 19th, which was a Thursday, to Monday, the 16th. Just getting them a little bit of an early head start.
Thank you, Dr. Gross. Any other board members have any questions? Under programs on the mini agenda number 1, and under programs under addendum number 1, all in favor, aye? Opposed, nay? Motion passes. Policies, we have no policies this evening. Buildings and grounds. We have nothing to act on as far as discussions about the lease facilities.
One item to add
Move
on.
the lawn
We just have the
I
lawnmower.
didn't see the one. So under buildings and grounds, number 1, can I have a first and a second?
Megan, so moved. Christine, second.
Any board comments or questions? So I have a first and a second under buildings and grounds, number 1, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And we'll go to facility lease agreements. There's been a couple questions about facility lease agreements. On which fields are being actually under agreement, not under agreement. We talked a little bit about this. The Baseball Association has an agreement for some fields, but all fields. The soccer has some, and the lacrosse has some. And is it a private, or is it a non-profit?
It's a youth organization.
The youth organization. We had someone request the all-purpose field. We want to talk about that. Mike, you had that more than I did.
Yeah, there was a proposal put in by Blair Gerlach for Century Steel. Essentially, he was looking at a bulk use of the field and had requested a reduction in the rate from $80 an hour to $100 an hour to $80 an hour because of the bulk use. And I don't know that there's been any agreement on number of hours or days, but he indicated that they're interested in a lot of time and use of the field. So he sent us an email and Mr. Kennedy circulated that to the board.
I sent a follow-up email with some questions and I got a response. So I don't know if anyone's prepared to answer those today.
I sent some questions too. I'd like some more time.
And when we're
Think about it,
talking about this, I think it's important to recognize if these fields are paid for by taxpayers via the school district, right? In order for use for the school district first. So this field would be utilized if the school district and a community organization wasn't utilizing it.
No.
That would be the option. Like everybody else gets first. Yes, is what I was trying to say. Or now.
No, the way the policy is written, yeah, the fields exist to support school district programs. That's why they exist. We are not the township park, for example, which, that has that's different. Right. However, we do, through our use of facility policy, provide access to the community and other groups to those fields. So that, and our policy sort of outlines how that happens. But what is clear, regardless of who has a lease agreement within, is that the school district uses always come first. Period. Stop. And then after that, there is a fee structure based on how your organization fits into different categories of what that fee structure would be. The leases for lacrosse, I think, have more to do with the access to sort of the restrooms and the press box and things like that. It's not so much over guaranteed usage. And youth soccer was grandfathered in through a very long-term lease for Saturday morning youth soccer and Sunday morning youth travel soccer. But besides that, I don't believe that any of our other current leases dictate guaranteed times.
And evening practices, soccer and also.
Yeah, there's an evening practices, but that was sort of grandfathered in within the acquisition of that property.
Yep.
Yeah, so that sort of sets the stage on where they are. But in terms of priority, the only priority that's set in stone is with the school district.
Because when I read this, I thought it was like based on the classes, right? So like Class C, a community-based organization, I read it as they would get preferential field time over a private.
They get preferential pricing. They don't necessarily get preferential schedule.
Which I guess,
First come, first served based on
Exactly.
I guess just to clarify, because it sounds like we're kind of talking about two separate things. The request today is for a discount for a group buy of time under the existing policy. The question is, we're not voting on a new policy. We're not trying to recreate the policy. The policy already exists. So unless we have a change to the policy that we want to propose, that's a different subject. My understanding is the request right now has nothing to do with other than somebody requesting to use the existing policy to get a discount for guaranteeing to give a block of hours up front.
Right. And my main question that, and I am conceptually in favor of that. But what I would want to know before I endorsed it with my support would be what commitment of time would that be? There's a request for hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
And my question was, would that commitment of those hundreds of hours by default give that organization higher scheduling priority over local volunteer community groups?
Mm.
And that was not clear to me, and maybe it's clear to somebody else because we got like a 5-second
I agree.
email.
There was something-
But I don't want to necessarily create a hierarchy by saying because this person has so much, this group has so many hours that we're going to put those hours in and everybody else has to work around.
Work around those,
Right, that was my, and maybe it's all been figured out. I just don't have the benefit of that
And
information.
while I agree with you, I guess I would thinking conceptually, if 15 organizations came today and each picked a day, or one organization came and picked 15 days, what's the difference? Under our current policy, what's the difference?
If he's first come, first served.
If this person came first and said, I want these 200 hours, or 200 groups came and wanted an hour each, I guess I'm not.
The difference, Anthony, in my opinion, is if it's a school, if this is a non-school organization that's looking for that block of time, and your school organizations haven't scheduled yet, then we have a problem.
No,
You know,
that's,
it's clear that
again,
it'd be around
you're
schools.
misunderstanding. There is a
It'd be
policy in
around,
place
right.
that does not allow what you just said to happen. That is in the policy.
Okay, but
We're
if
not
I'm
changing the policy.
the soccer group and I'm trying to set up a schedule of practice and communicate with parents what night practice is gonna be on, and they're choosing every Tuesday night or Thursday night, then that can't always be the case because school organizations might decide to have practice that night on the field.
He would be aware of that. That's something you'd have to abide by.
Randall, I think the
Andy,
policy,
to your question, that maybe, and Mr. Heiner is
Yeah,
sitting
maybe
there,
Mr.
he's the
Heiner.
one who does this. But what I would say is when a request like that would come in, there is an existing schedule.
correct.
There's been historic usage over time. So there would need to be some sort of conversation that would say, well, typically, let's just say youth lacrosse tends to use this field on, between 4 and 7 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So the question is would, by virtue of agreeing to so many hours, would the historical usage of some of those other groups then be bumped to accommodate this other group?
And that's
the
what I'm
answer
trying
is
to
no.
say.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say, because here's my fear. All of a sudden you open this up to the highest bidder. We're not Adams Park, I understand that, but we're still community owned fields. The taxpayers paid for these fields for the school district to utilize. They're not being utilized all the time. We have a shortage of fields. In that case, community-based organizations that are run by volunteers, in order for our youth to get out from in front of screens and out like doing activities, should have access to these fields instead of, to your point, someone could show up and say, well, I'm willing to pay more than they're willing to pay, and I have all these hours in bulk, and I need to schedule all of these because, for example, lacrosse, maybe they don't have their teams figured out yet. They don't know how many people are signed up because theirs doesn't start till April 1st. But somebody could come in and say, I own a lacrosse company and I want to book it these days right now. And then all of a sudden the community doesn't have access to these fields. And then the community is forced to have their kids in these activities in order, what I'm trying to say here?
Well, but there is a little bit of history with some groups using that field. And I guess my hope would be
Yeah.
in supporting a power buying
Yeah,
arrangement
correct.
is that we would be considerate of historic usage so that groups that have used it, and Mr. Heinauer would know that they would not get bumped, is my point. So
Right.
that
Yeah.
the times for the power buying would be,
Just not to interrupt you. Our people schedule that field first. Like, let's just talk fall.
our people meaning school
Our
teams.
school district,
Okay.
like our soccer teams, they'll give me a schedule on when they want to be on that field. And that's put in there before anything else is approved. We have our schedule, and that's the number one concern that I'm concerned about. And we're not worried about these outside people or anybody else. We're worried about just our team's practice. I think from his standpoint, if there's idle time on that field, that's what he wants to do. We're not gonna bump any other organization off. And if we have to practice as a team, well then so what? They're out. Whether they're paying or not, our team comes first. That's how it works. That's how it works in any of the, I have to approve the use of facilities in the field or the gym. So our organizations come first, our people first.
So if somebody wanted 200 hours over a 3-year, 200 hours per year for 3 years, you would schedule them around.
We first schedule our teams first.
No, yeah, I know
That's
that,
what I'm
but then in second, but if, say, youth soccer, youth football, youth lacrosse typically has that field certain nights of the week or something like that, you would
Well,
sprinkle those 200 hours.
currently, nobody's on that. And nobody's they haven't requested that field. We're talking about the auxiliary field.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Right.
Oh, I don't think that's,
That's true.
When you say, and you say our youth, that includes the band practices.
That would include whatever, yes.
And that is a concern that I've heard the field sits idle a lot. That's one of the things as to why I guess this proposal was brought forward, because this individual is a soccer coach and knows that field is idle, but I'm not sure that Mr. Heinauer would be the one to know if it does sit idle, and you certainly want
It
it to
does.
be used, we can get money from it. We also don't want the other teams, if there were youth, groups using it, but it doesn't sound like they use the mat probably more, is what I understand.
yeah, I
I
have seen teams on there. I thought youth lacrosse was a heavy user, but not heavy enough to
They use the
use
mat
it
a lot.
24/7, but I don't know.
Youth lacrosse goes on to our game field because those nets are there. That's the reason
Okay.
why.
I guess just then to clarify, because we should clarify what my position is. I believe the policy already states
Yeah.
that if any change, I just want to confirm again, if any of our school teams decide to change their day, because they want to change from Tuesday to Wednesday,
Yeah.
whoever, no matter whether they've signed up for stuff in advance or not,
Yes.
they get bumped.
Yep.
That's already written in the policy. I guess that was my clarification at the beginning. Already have a policy.
Right.
Doesn't sound like we want to change the policy. We just,
Right.
if somebody wants to schedule around the existing policy. We don't think the existing policy
Get
works.
answers to
That's
some
a
of the questions. that
different
we're
story.
Yeah, make sure that people aren't used to practicing that.
Yeah, well, and I honestly, I have actually no idea. That was just my concern, and he just answered that. If there's nobody that has a historic usage of that field and it's literally wide open,
That's not for those.
well, I don't know, that's kind of surprising to me, but if there is, then I have no issue with a lease agreement. I just want to make sure that we're being fair and considerate
Totally
to
agree.
all of the groups.
Yes.
And that we're not blocking out, other people because of the request for the large number of hours. That was my biggest concern. I had some other questions, but that was my biggest issue.
I will not let that happen.
Can I ask you a question? Do you have a master schedule for that auxiliary
There's a
field?
master's, can you go online right now? You can see who's using
Okay.
what field.
Would the board want Claire Gerlach to sit down with Mr. Heinauer and block out a year to see what it looks like? Because 200 to 300 hours is a little bit of a range.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And we could see the usage then.
And then
too.
you could share that to the board, what he's proposing and what could work.
There were 1 or 2 other items I would want to know if 200 to 300 hours is their base minimum, that's going to be paid in advance. Because again, if we're going to give priority scheduling, we would want to know if we're actually going to, that we're going to get the rental out of giving
A
either a
minimum
discount
number of hours.
or
That was one of my questions, yep.
For the Any discounted.
For any discount, yeah, is it a guaranteed minimum?
Right.
Yeah.
That was one of mine, and
I would think it would have to be.
and then, and there's gotta be some way to monitor it.
Correct.
Yeah, you're seeing that too, yeah.
And then this was a completely different issue than the bill question.
Yeah, again, we use baseball. I guess the question, it was the facility use and we approved in March to use the
Wait a
restroom.
second, no, are we talking about, are we done with this?
Yeah,
issue?
yes.
Well, we
They-
changed, yeah,
so
we-
what's the
I just
board
was trying to
plan?
see if these meshed together somehow, because we got sent emails
That's
about
a
this, but
different
not about
deal.
this today, and I didn't know.
Right, it was, yeah, they're separate issues. This, I mean,
So this, we're gonna master schedule, and we're gonna continue to get information.
Right.
Before we make the decision.
Okay.
Well, I think there was, so I appreciate that information, I didn't.
Yeah, why did we
actually
build
know.
the field if it's
Yeah.
not being used? I guess that's what comes to my mind.
Well, we
Why are
already
we
soccer
build it?
teams use it. No, I was talking with them outside of our school teams, outside of our soccer teams. Mr. Heiner, if you're correct with me, and maybe our school lacrosse, which
Our-
uses the MAC most of the time, it's youth groups, youth teams don't usually utilize that enclosed field. Outside of our
Boys and
schools,
girls across,
they're
teams,
protected.
they go on there
Is the other
during
question.
soccer season. Time.
Well, if there's a game, then you have the other boys, girls,
Soccer, you
Go
go
back
And
and forth.
for
soccer,
policy,
you
they
just-
would have priorities.
That's
They
the
could
place,
go first.
that's
Yeah.
separate.
Right.
Okay,
We-
okay, so
we
we're gonna
take care
get
of our
some,
people first.
we're gonna get some questions answered, maybe see a mock-up of a schedule, and we can proceed from there. I'm okay with that, I just didn't have the information.
We'll probably have to use last year's schedule just based on
Yeah, that'd be fine. Well, last year's kind of wonky,
Yeah.
but,
how cool.
Yeah.
I mean, not this past,
I think.
yeah,
not this past, you look at August, went from there.
okay,
We'll
yeah,
at
yeah,
least know that.
okay. Okay,
Mr. Hanover, how far in advance can, groups request the use of a facility?
Well, Mrs. Boggs and I talked about this today. Normally, typically, we don't take any, July 1, it's kind of like we use for, that is the day that we will start to approve people for the fall. Okay, and you can't keep going on and on and on. What happened at one point in time, we did have somebody that was here, is no longer here. They booked gyms and things 3-4 years in advance. That doesn't take place now. So I will not let that happen.
So we may not.
So it is like July 1, that's what we're looking at.
It's not a rolling schedule, Mr. Hanover, where you get to your book 3 months in advance, you're waiting until July 1st in order to approve the fall?
Well, sometimes our coaches' jobs and things change. So, you don't know what you're gonna need to practice, what date, what time you're gonna need to practice.
Well,
Yeah,
if
we have
somebody
our-
does know what day and time they need to practice, and they're certain about it, can they still submit
That
it?
might be them, but you have 7th and 8th grade boys soccer, 7th and 8th grade girls soccer use that field, along with our varsity, both varsity soccer teams use that field right now. As far as for the fall, I'm talking about.
Yes, I'm
Outside
talking
of
about the
soccer.
fall too.
And our lacrosse teams go on there, not a lot, but they still go on there. They do have a fall lacrosse, like they're involved in fall lacrosse. So my point of view is that things change. So my point is, you can't keep booking in advance. If you let that happen, people are just gonna keep taking it for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. We can't do that.
No,
So
I'm
one
talking
year.
about-
So 1 year,
One
1
year.
year.
Sounds like
1
that's
year.
already-
Yeah, honestly, it sounds like he has a system on that end that's working, so I don't know that.
You haven't had any problems whatsoever.
I'm good. All right, so what's next? What's making the season? Baseball?
The
Well, I just
baseball.
didn't know if it was.
Yeah, I don't know, the baseball, Mr. Hunter, how does that work? It's a
Baseball.
youth baseball.
Youth baseball.
We have an agreement for the restrooms at the administration, covered by the administration. We have an agreement with those 2 fields.
Yes.
Do we have any other agreements with them, with the turf fields?
No, the lacrosse teams both use the
No,
stadium
I'm
for
talking-
youth lacrosse.
No, I'm talking about the girls soccer,
Softball.
softball, the turf softball.
The youth baseball.
Youth baseball uses that field. Yes. Nobody else uses that field to depth. Don't you asking me?
What all do we have an agreement with youth baseball to play on Field West?
Do we have a contract? Is that what you're asking? What's contracted?
Just the restrooms, they're like lazy.
Right.
Restrooms is anything we have, that's what I'm
Right.
asking.
That's the only team that has an agreement as far as that softball team is concerned, our softball field. Softball and youth baseball both use that field. Softball mainly uses that in the fall, and baseball mainly uses that along with softball now.
And their usage is just simply scheduled for the use of facilities process, right? It's not
Yes.
like there's a predetermined lease agreement that commits them to certain hours. They just go in and request the fields, right?
Yes.
Okay, and they do that for both practice and league
I don't know
games.
about practice, all I know is they send me a time, doesn't say practice on it, but yes, it is scheduled in advance.
It's scheduled in advance. And what about tournaments?
If they have a tournament, then yes. they have-
It's all scheduled for
Right
use
now,
of
it's not,
facilities.
there's no
Okay.
tournament scheduled right now, as far as on that softball. field.
There's no tournament scheduled?
Not in the softball field.
Okay.
So
They've requested time, and I have, as long as we're not on there,
Yeah,
that time is,
absolutely.
the time is okay.
Right. Yeah, just follow the policy we have, right?
Right.
Just follow our policy, we're good, right?
So the email they received this week for a bill, was that for the use of facilities, or what was that for?
But what happened was 2 years ago, those fees were put in place by the board. Okay, and then it was waived 2 years ago. That was waived in order to give them time, because they complained that they didn't know about this charge whatsoever. So that fee was waived 2 years ago.
Remember that too.
And then last year, that nobody, because of the pandemic, there was no baseball, softball on any of those fields. So now we're fast forwarding to now, and now that agreement is in place. And
They're complaining.
So were they aware that, how much is the bill for?
I don't set the bill, Mrs. Boggs actually sets the bill. I just,
Based on.
I'm on the
this.
first.
Based on the policy.
And I'm the first one in line on, because if we want to use the field, I'll say our teams use it, you can't use it.
Where did the $80,000 come from?
That's what they were doing.
That's the 80,000.
Yeah,
So what
that
were
was
they,
the
$80,000. Where again?
I don't know.
what were they previously paying 2 years ago?
Nothing.
So,
We changed the policy for all.
right, but that policy was changed before I came on the board, so I'm just trying to understand. So a youth organization that's run by volunteers and taxpayers, community members, and the children who attend the school went from paying $0 to use fields at the Marsh School District to $80,000.
Outdoor fields.
It's 0 to 80.
From what they submitted for hours.
I mean, the soccer plays outside too. So
How much
does
did you soccer play?
So what,
This
what my
big table's
memory
on the
is
sheet.
that
Right.
if there was an indoor facility, because it required a district person being present, there were fees associated with indoor facilities for class gyms, wrestling rooms, things like that. You had to have somebody else in the building, and there was a fee associated, and there's trash and stuff. For outdoor facilities, I believe historically, they were for class, for, I think the letters changed, but for the local not-for-profits,
Class A, B, and C.
Cs or whatever, yeah, they were nothing for many, many years. And then it came to the board that there was an analysis done of our fees compared to other local communities, and their outdoor fees for a similar facility. And so we increased our fees to be in line with other surrounding areas. I don't remember it being anything more than that. I do remember the waiver. I do remember COVID. And I think this is the year that it's coming in full force. So I think that's an outrageous bill. I think there needs to be a conversation, but I do believe that they understood that there were going to be fees associated with that field use going.
They did, but
I'm
That's
looking at the
800
turf field, they have the turf field, which is the most expensive one, reserved for 12 hours on each weekend.
that's.
So if they're not actually using that, then they shouldn't reserve it for that amount of time. So it could be just a communication issue between the organization
Right.
and the district.
And I think a conversation with the administration to understand that's
my point, to go from
That's the
0 to
scenario.
80.
You requested all these hours and you're gonna get billed all these hours. You should just request it the time you need field.
At 8 a.m.
So we can maybe have, who could?
The administration is gonna have to. talk to
Administration
you.
could figure, maybe work with them and figure something out.
Yeah, I mean, at $100 an hour, that's
Dr.
8
Because
hours.
they're not using 12 hours.
So maybe we can help adjust
Yeah,
that
yeah.
bill, right? Maybe we can help adjust, maybe we can talk, someone could talk and they could maybe work on
Yeah, I think Mr.
Dr.
Hanauer
Gross.
and Dr. Gross are on the team for that. I mean, it takes, because you're scheduling it, right, Mr. Hanauer?
Yes.
that together.
They have to give us a realistic time of when they're gonna be on. They just say 8, 10 hours. You're gonna get billed for 10 hours. If you say you wanna be there for 10 hours, I mean, that's what,
Okay, so we can have a clear understanding and a conversation about the current bill.
Yeah, let's figure it out.
And then, and the second part of baseball, sorry to keep bringing this up. We use a private owned baseball field, down in Calgary. The school district uses it. Do we have our own policy that we pay to use it, or, I mean, what do we do with that?
we do not pay to use it. We've never paid to use that field.
Now, is that field used substantially more than our own home field?
No, no, it is not.
So we practice on our home field?
Yes, we do.
What are we talking about?
Baseball, school baseball, varsity, JV, ninth grade, JV and varsity.
Okay.
Where does it practice at, I guess my question.
Practice on the game field, on the field at the middle school.
Okay. And all their games are played,
The varsity is played right at the varsity. The JV and varsity team practice on the game field currently at the middle school.
and the ninth grade plays
The
at.
ninth grade plays down in Calgary, so that's where they practice at.
Does Cali charge the school district?
No, we have a nice, community member that donates that to us at this particular point in time. But I don't know, if we have a policy that we're gonna charge for ball fields, it should we expect to pay? For ball? I mean, I have not had a conversation with him, but it's just, it's coming up.
I think this is a great opportunity for Mr. Hanauer and the administration to deal with this. I see the importance of it. I'm not saying it isn't important, but we've spent half an hour talking about fields. That there's a policy for.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think we need to
have an
turn this
established policy for our
back.
There's no change in policy. I'm not sure why we're.
Right, which is good to know, right? But I mean, I think this needs to go back to admin, like this.
And there's a chance that maybe admin needs to give a recommendation to the board on
Correct.
changing the cost, because just personally,
Or a discount or a lease or something.
yeah, like, taxpayers are paying taxes and then now we're charging them and all those fees are gonna trickle down to the family. They're simply trying to have their children involved in activities and before you know it, it's gonna cost $500 for your kid to play t-ball to afford to pay the school district for the field that you paid tax dollars to build. And at a certain point, that's not respectful to the taxpayer.
Okay, this is a good public discussion. This is all about. Okay, so we'll move forward. On the main agenda under other, numbers 1, 2, 7. We're gonna modify number 8 to read high school students C, D, E, F, G, H, I.
Megan, so moved.
Oh, we gotta give one more, under number 11 also. So I get a first and a second?
Megan, so moved.
Scene seconds.
So I have a first and a second. Any board conversation, discussion?
Just for everybody to clarify, we took 3, 4, 5, and 6 and combined them into 8.
Correct.
Okay. And 9, exactly.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? That carries. We want the public comment at this point. So for the next 30 minutes, 3 minutes apiece for public comment. Does anyone wish to have public comment? Well, you'll have 3 minutes. Go ahead and state your name and your address. Well, you have to unmute.
Yeah. Can you hear me? This is Todd Wearing.
Yes.
Yes.
Your name and
Yeah,
address.
yes. Todd Wearing, 210 Union Church Road, Mars, Pennsylvania. I am calling in Perfect. Thank you. I'm calling in regards, listening in with Mars Baseball Association. I understand the board has just said that we were aware 2 years ago that we were going to start being charged. I have been on the board for 3 years. In no way, shape, or form was I ever informed of any charge to Mars Baseball to use the school facilities. Over the course of the last 10 to 15 years, I know Mars Baseball Youth Association has personally put thousands upon thousands of dollars into dirt at Adams 1, Adams 2, which back even when softball was playing on those fields. I know that we've done work on the dugouts at the high school baseball field. The Mars Youth Baseball Association has also committed many loads of dirt and volunteer hours to working on the high school field through current board members and previous board members. There has been, as you guys mentioned, the 9th grade team does use Calorie Baseball Field. That is actually under lease through Mars Youth Baseball Organization, and it's always been in good faith working with the high school and having the 9th grade and JV at times practicing and playing games on those fields. Just in general, the man hours that have gone into upkeeping and time and effort spent with these fields has been a lot for this volunteer organization. I received a bill for almost $80,000, and with that, there's no possible, we would cut our organization in half if we had to pay that kind. There would be so many families not paying to play a youth sport, and I think that would be a shame. To my point, we have 500 people in the organization. It would be, and that's from T-ball up through, I believe, 13U off the top of my head. I'm not looking at it. So when I got a bill last Friday for $80,000, I almost fell out of my chair. Never once have I been informed of that kind of bill. I was told 2 years ago, I also run our youth wrestling, that the fees were increasing. And so I was aware of that for indoor usage, but never once were we informed from the baseball side of things. We've always worked in good partnership. We provided dumpsters at Adams 1 and 2. And that have been utilized by way more than just baseball. I mean, I do know that. We provide trash, the dumpster down at Calorie too, for the school field to be used down there. And this time of year, we don't have people playing on it. We maintain that field as well, as far as dirt, mowing grass, clean up, everything across the board. The school, to my knowledge, the school is only responsible for painting the lines in the outfield, is what the maintenance guys do down at that field, and line the infield when there is a game.
Thank you, Todd. My suggestion is to reach out to Mr. Heinauer and Dr. Gross. We can get this resolved. Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Lynn George. Lynn, you'll have 3 minutes. Just state your name and your address.
Lynn George, 3052 Humboldt Place, Valencia, PA.
Go ahead.
Thank you for taking some public comments. I sent an email or a letter to the board members. I'm newly moved back to Mars school districts. Our children were raised here and attended Mars school districts. So I was really fascinated to look at the information that was provided on the board site and to have the opportunity to see what's going on related to the work that you've done. And I want to compliment you as a board. During challenging times, I know that you've made challenging decisions, but the purpose for my comment tonight is to really advocate for support for the teachers, for the tech support, for the structures that support the quality of the education. I am a dean at a local university, and these are issues that we have been struggling with, just like you have. So that I'm offering my opinion about something that I feel very passionately about, and that is you can't cut your way to quality education. And it's important. I understand that you're considering your finance. This is the budget time for academic institutions everywhere. I know that you have hard decisions to make, but I want to just advocate for the idea that we need to think about what's in the best interest of the students, and that is investing in the faculty that you have, the teachers that you have, and investing in the technology support. I ask a lot of questions around my neighborhood for the children that are going to Mars School District, and they talk about their satisfaction with the technology, and they're tough judges about technology, but they seem to, the consensus seems to be that having that support and having the quality of technology is important to them. And I also want to urge you to think in terms of, my own faculty needed to pivot very quickly to the online environment, just like yours did as well. And essential to the success of our ability to do that was that we had internal support from both instructional designers and we had our internal tech support. Without those two things, we would not have been able to be as successful. So as a member of your tax-paying public, I want to say that I am in favor of you raising taxes to support and invest in teachers and support the education, the high quality education that Mars is known for. So thank you. You all received my email today. I'm sure that you had a busy day, just like I did. So you may not have read it, but there's some more details in there.
Thank you.
All right, next is Heather Raybold.
Heather, if you state your name, your address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Heather Raybold, if you're there.
You have to unmute yourself if you haven't.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, sorry. For some reason, it keeps muting me again.
Say your name.
So Heather Raybold, 604 Valencia Road, Mars, Pennsylvania. And I first wanted to say thank you for the request to add the additional reading specialist at the primary center. As Mr. Gross mentioned during the finance meeting, the gaps only get larger and wider as students progress in school. So with that, I'm asking that the board not only considers a reading specialist at the primary center, but also at Centennial, because they don't currently have one. So a student can receive tier 3 interventions in elementary where they're experiencing success, but then transition to 5th grade at Centennial, and the only support that they get for reading falls on the classroom teacher. So in 5th grade, that's not really fair because, as Dr. Gross said, the gaps are still there. They don't just disappear from 4th grade to 5th grade. So I just ask the board that as you're really being proactive in looking at the needs of the students, which I greatly appreciate with considering Wilson and things that students with disabilities need, I just ask that the board consider also adding a reading specialist to the Centennial so that students that are being successful and we're narrowing the gap continue to have that success. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish for public comment?
Greg Mason.
So Greg, unmute and state your name and address. We'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Greg Mason, 206 Cups Drive, Valencia, Pennsylvania. First off, I want to thank you guys for getting, or whoever was responsible for getting the Title IX coordinator information posted online. That puts Mars back in compliance with that, so I appreciate it. Thank you. Second thing was, I know last meeting, or maybe it's 2 meetings ago, there's a request made by, I believe, myself and some other residents that when there's a presentation, for instance, like the finance presentation at the earlier meeting, if it'd be possible to share the screen so we can actually see what the business manager is talking about. Is there any progress on that? Because it didn't seem to be happening this evening.
Didn't happen. Jill, did you have a comment on?
No, the information was submitted to the board for the board's review and discussion. And the recommendation next week will be a tentative budget. At that point, if the board adopts that, that document will be posted for public review and comment.
All right, thank you. So if this was an in-person meeting, would that be normally projected on the screen, or is that not the case?
No, we just have a piece of paper like we did this night, right in front of us.
Yes, they've never been put out for the public prior to the tentative budget adoption.
Is there a reason that they can't be?
Okay.
That would be a board discussion.
Okay, there's not like a person.
Ideally, I don't like to put that information out there because it's ever changing.
Right, right.
Yeah, if you have two
And once it's out there, there seems to be held to it.
Right.
So we do tend to keep those documents to just the board level until the actual tentative budget is adopted. And then at that point, it is made public because it then becomes a public document.
And that's what the review period is for.
Correct,
So then we won't
absolutely.
adopt it until we've given the public the chance to respond.
And they get to comment, they get to, right?
Comment, yep, then 20 days, and that is the law, that requirement is out there so that the public can weigh in on the school district budgets.
It's getting a little hard to hear some of the back and forth there, but regardless. The other thing too is in terms of comments before the meeting on agenda items, it'd be, and again, it might be under the same issue. I feel it's difficult to comment sometimes when you don't see, the agenda items are often very vague. Is there, if we want more transparency, more discussion, especially before you guys vote on these agenda items, I would plead with the board to post more information on the agenda items and or any addendums, at least present them. I realize you might not want to put them in PDF form, on the website, but at least present them beforehand somehow, because it's difficult to make inferences of what it is in terms of voting. And I'll leave it at that. Again, thank you guys for all you do. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night. Anyone else wish to have public comment at this point? Amber Rush. Amber, you can have, state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Amber Rush, 112 Justice Drive, Valencia, PA 16059. I want to thank all the parents, teachers, and administration involved with the school district looking at the needs of our struggling readers and asking for the addition of a reading specialist at the primary center. This is a big win for everyone in the district, including families and educators. Also, I want to thank those that were involved in purchasing the Sunday and Wilson. I am very, very interested in looking at how it's going to be implemented into the district, because like Dr. Gross said, the correct intervention early is so important, and it's what the district has been missing. So I've never been so excited to send Dr. Gross an email to set up a time to learn more about this, but I just wanted to give a public shout out to everyone, thanking them. All right, bye.
Thank you. Have a good night. Anyone else wish to have public comment at this point?
Lauren Evans.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wish to have public comment at this point? Anyone else wish to have public comment at this point? Then we'll move on to the agenda.
Since it's public comment, the last question. If you could just email me tomorrow, I can give you an overview of that. it's something we're certainly not getting rid of, but we made some adjustments, but since it's not, we're trying to stay away from question and answer. I don't want to like make it sound like we don't answer you. So if you want to email me tomorrow, I'll get you that answer right away.
Is that the sight word, like in the hall with the paper?
Yes. It's not going to go away. We just made some tweaking.
Well, I'm glad to
For
hear
the
that.
next
I
couple
thought maybe
weeks.
my son was just failing every week because I hadn't gotten anything home. So
No,
I guess
we're trying to hit those of real critical need. So we made an executive decision to try to change our focus for a little bit, but I can explain that, but no, it won't go away completely.
I guess I'm glad Luke's not failing.
Yeah, I just didn't want to not answer, but for tonight, we won't answer, but I will put that into an email for you to email me. Not a problem.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Go on, agenda, association. Anyone from the association with this speak? Ms. Zoelle? Shelley Zoelle, go ahead, unmute.
Good evening, everyone. This is Shelley Zoelle, speaking on behalf of the Teachers Association. First of all, a big thank you to our tech department, led by Ryan Morgan, for all their hard work this year and for improving the sound at these virtual meetings. It's very much appreciated. Secondly, I'd like to address the contract between the district and our teachers. Back on February 17th, the board, the teachers, and the community were relieved to hear that a tentative agreement was reached and a strike was avoided. However, since then, there have been unexpected delays in finalizing the language in the contract. As the end of the year approaches, our members are understandably anxious to see the agreement and have the opportunity to vote on it. Now, our board members and our teachers are all very fair and reasonable people, and we all want the same end result here. So we are respectfully requesting that the board follow through on the tentative agreement and work with us to finish the job and end this year on a positive note. Time is of the essence. This has been an extremely difficult school year for everyone, including our students. Let's finish the contract so we can enjoy the last several weeks with our students and begin to prepare for next year without this hanging over our heads. And lastly, we sincerely hope that an agreement can also be reached for members of our support staff. That is all from the association. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice night.
Thank you. Administration, Dr. Gross?
I don't believe I have anything. No major announcements. I just want to remind everyone we are back in substantial. The COVID cases have sort of gone the other way. Did get an email from a parent who felt that my last communication about asking people to stay safe was sort of finger pointing to the community. So I apologize to anybody if that's how it was taken. The goal of that latest communication to parents was simply just to remind everybody to be safe. Try to do your best in this environment. Certainly not finger pointing. When COVID cases hit, you have no idea where they came from, whether it be in a school or in a social event outside of school. So it's a group effort. You know, we're continuing to do what we need to do here and trying to keep things moving. Little disappointed in the uptick of cases going the other way, but that's happening not only at Mars, it's happening statewide. And I'm just asking folks not to let your guard down. I'm extremely optimistic as we move through this vaccination period, as I call it, looking forward to next year. We are going to start taking a look very strongly. With the teachers, we agreed that we would take a look at LSI and what that looks like. And I just want to say that it's going to look very, very different next year if we have it at all. I don't want to preconceive what it would look like, but I want to try to get back to a sense of normalcy next year. Maybe it's an unrealistic thought process, but I'd like to get back to a more traditional setting, get things back to normal. But LSI is something we're going to have to discuss in depth. And I'm hoping that ultimately with LSI that it's something that we will have less of next year, and try to get back to a sense of normalcy. So our COVID cases are going the wrong way. It's not just a Mars issue. It's not a community problem. It's not a parent neglect issue. So apologize if anyone took that message the wrong way. It was just a message to say, let's all be diligent in our efforts and vigilant and trying to be smart as we get together in social environments. So we're back in substantial. What that means is we're back under the attestation form requirements that the state gave to us, which really won't change a whole lot of things for us because we are already following the mask requirements, and B, we're already following the closure requirements. So let's hope that as time moves on, we will get out of substantial and this pandemic will be a thing of the past here as we work through the end of the school year and into the summer months. So there'll be a lot more to come on what we're planning to do moving into the fall. I want to give folks an opportunity to have a pretty good handle on what Mars Area School District education will look like going into the fall, well in advance of the latter part of summer. So just want to thank everyone for hanging in there with us as we navigate this, and that's about all I have to say right now.
Thank you, Dr. Boyce. Dr. McMahon?
Yes, please. Just as a reminder to our pre-K parents out there that our kindergarten lottery, our registration day is on Friday, April 16th, 9:30 a.m. starting here in the Centennial Gymnasium. We will have no food and beverages entering into the gymnasium, giving us no reason to kind of pull our masks down or anything like that. Additionally, for individuals who would rather wait outside, weather permitting, we will have a tent outside the gymnasium door, as we call lottery numbers. If people do not want to walk into the gymnasium, maybe hand a packet into the individual standing at the door. We'll take that to the table, get everything situated. Additionally, we've invited all individuals to meet with our registrar, Chris Barr, and review those packets just to make sure that there are no hiccups or mistakes. Interfering with them confirming their registration process on Friday. So we strongly encourage parents who have not talked with Chris Barr to give her a call. The information is on the website. Just to review the packet, answer any kind of questions, to make sure that you come with all the necessary documentation. We always remind parents that we do not need, you bring us your originals, we will make copies and you can leave with your originals in return. So again, just kindergarten registration lottery starting on Friday, April 16th, 9:30 a.m. The first starting number is number 865. Thank you.
Thank you. Primary. Do you have anything this evening?
I have nothing, Mr. Kennedy.
Okay. High school?
Nothing new. I did Catholic data, what great. Thank you for your support last month.
Yeah, they did the CAP experience today. Despite a couple little hiccups, it went really well though, Lindsay, so
Yeah,
good
this is
job.
our first time doing it, but it went well. So
Yep.
thank you, because I know I rolled that out last month and we did it this month. That was quick, but I appreciate your support and it went well. So off and running, future ready.
Great experience for kids to get them thinking about post high school early.
Thank you. The athletic director, Mr. Harrisville Becker.
No, he had to step up for the.
He had to go back to lacrosse.
Special ed, Travis.
April is Autism Awareness Month, and our staff will be observing that day on Friday, the 16th, by wearing blue and making a donation for the National Autism Association.
Thank you.
And Travis, thank you for all the communication with that. I know you've been putting out a lot of communications and spreading the word, so thank you.
Ms. Sweeney?
Yes, I just want to give an update on where we are with the teacher's contract. So following the meeting, the PSEA rep drafted a draft copy, and sent that to the school district solicitor that's handling the negotiations. And it has since been returned back to the PSEA rep, and we are hopeful that shortly we should receive another draft back. And that's, unfortunately, that's just the nature of whatever contract, whenever a contract has changes in wordings, it can take some time to go back and forth. The past two contracts were early bird, and there were only 3 issues. Typically in those, a less number, and they tended to be resolved quicker. This was a full-blown type negotiations in different areas of the contract, where there are changes and wordings that he worked through with the legal departments of PSEA and our school district's attorney. So we're hopeful that we'll be receiving a copy that the association can submit to their members shortly.
Thank you. Did I miss any? Administrator? We go on to board comment. Any board comment this evening?
I just have, one quick one. There's a question on the support contract negotiations. Those have been ongoing, and we are going to post an update on the status of that on the website.
And then I just have a couple comments. Congratulations, I guess, just to shout out to the arts at the district. We have congratulations going out to both the students and the staff involved with Mars Indoor Drumline and Winter Guard. Congratulations for qualifying for the national finals and their respective division. And we're certainly keeping our fingers crossed for the awards ceremony this coming Sunday, April 18th. Also, a shout out to our 3 students involved in the musical that qualified for the Jimmy Awards. We have Ellie Howell, who qualified for Best Actress, along with Meredith, Megan McKenzie, thank you. And then Best Actor for Zach Granatz. So that's a huge achievement for the students in that musical, and I think it was probably one of the best musicals I've ever seen at Mars. So if you had a chance to catch it, you should not have been disappointed. That was an outstanding job. We also have 3 students who qualified for state choir as well. So a big week for the students in the Mars area school district involved in the arts, and best of luck to all the students moving forward.
Thank you. Any other board members?
This is Megan. I just want to thank the special ed committee for the fancy masks we have tonight to recognize autism awareness month.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Megan, so moved.
Sally, second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Have a great evening. Enjoy the spring weather.